A guy walks out and says, "This is a carrot." And he holds up a carrot, and he stares at the audience for like 10 minutes and then shouts, "Wrong!" Walks off, and everybody's like, "This is revolutionary. Let's go write 20 think pieces." See, language condenses experience, like broth in a pressure cooker, and that's what they told me when in the class that I had to take on how to eat food. Apparently I needed to learn. I mean, I was eating plenty, but they said, "You're doing it very poorly." Well, who should walk in to teach this class but my ex-wife Marie? And the divorce, amicably agreed upon, but the legal proceedings of, hey, who gets the, autographed killer's record? And actually, that was the only source of conflict, but it dragged on for 2 years. Really embittered the both of us. We left some unfavorable stains on the napkins, and these were fancy napkins. I don't know why. Wait. This was dinner, wasn't it? We didn't get divorced. We had dinner. This is my wife, Marie. So Marie struts in, the strains of Somebody Told Me pumping through the speakers, and little eyeballs appear on the desk that are either emitting a dull pinkish light or reflecting regular light while being pink? Light's weird, man. It's like, "Hey, Light, how do colors work?" And Light says, I don't see color. And you're like, these days society's shifting toward embracing differences, learning to love every shade, every hue. And Light says, "I'm far too libertarian for that." And you're like, "Light, you're a libertarian?" And Light says, "Absolutely, I punch." You go, is there a correlation there? Libertarians are punchers? Light says, "See for yourself, Stinky, ask me about spiders." So off the top of my head, I say, all right, how did the first spider evolve? Light whacks me in the mouth, then the room goes dark. I still don't know how the first spider evolved. Now it's weighing on me. I mean, it probably came from something that did not be that, by definition, right? Like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Trick question, baby. The gopher came first. One day, a gopher made love to its own cousin. And gophers don't know any better, man. Nobody teaches them the dangers of inbreeding, so this gopher's like, I'm feeling all pregnant. And gopher husband says, and by husband I mean cousin, says, "Oh, well, why don't you try and squeeze out a kid? We're gophers. We don't have a real sense of responsibility, as mammals, we're probably going to have to hook this thing up some milk for a bit, but after that, not a big deal." So they go to the gopher maternity ward, and gopher doctor says, all right, push. So she does, and an egg pops out. Doctor says, this is curious. So you're probably thinking, hey, gotcha, Stinky. Egg came before the chicken. We're not there yet. Because they looked at this egg and noticed it had a keyhole on the side. So, dictionary definition, egg with a keyhole is called a door. So this inbreeding gopher pooped out a door child, and the gopher husband has to now go on a mystic quest to find the key to open his own son. Meets up with 3 sages before he goes. Gopher sage number 1 says, "You're gonna need a little bit of guidance along the way. Here's a snow globe where the elf lady on the inside, if her eyes glow pink, then that means it's dinner time with your wife." Then husband says, they call me husband. Narrator's calling me husband, but we're not technically married. Sage says, "Yeah, we're friggin' gophers. We don't have ceremonies. It's close enough. Dinner with your cousin. Also, what is wrong with you?" Gopher says, "What do you mean, what's wrong with me? She's a gopher. We made love." Sage says, "You're not a sage. You don't understand the implications." Sage number 2 comes over, gives the gopher a gun. Gopher's like, this is a much more useful tool than the snow globe. Thank you so much. Eventually realizes, like 3 weeks later, realizes, got no hands. So, has to leave the gun behind. Sage number 3 comes up, and Sage number 3 kind of joined the club in a crafty fashion. They were having the Sage convention down in Philly in 76, and this random gopher, he put on boots that he stole from the dump. Everybody's like, oh my god, this is a gopher in boots. This is a dumb gopher. This isn't a sage. And he said, I know, right? And they go, whoa, a moron that acknowledges its own moranity. Is this not the wisest of us all? And it wasn't. But because they're super deep about everything, they decided to let this dummy join up. So Sage number 3 says, hey, I got you something. And then spits bubble gum out of his eye. Husband's all sticky now, can't even go on his quest anymore. Baby remains unopened. But then this like half chicken, half egg creature sneaks out of the keyhole in the baby in the middle of the night, and one half of it hatches while the remaining half cobbles the shell back together and re-ensconces itself inside. So this has now been, like, 2 separate 50% chickens, one 50% egg iterated upon twice, and boy, there's no good way to combine gopher and wife, is there? The Gife runs for the hills. There is a degree of maternal love, again, mammals, but also there's a degree of mortal terror. This is a self-unbirthing bird that has come out of what's come out of her womb. So is kind of Rosemary's Baby on DMT is the experience here. Gife hides out in a motel, run by a gopher named Brixto, who used to write erotic poetry but doesn't like to talk about it. And Brixto, he's got a big hammer, right? He's never fixed a nail in his life. Uses it to bash the authorities. Gopher cops come in, saying we've got a child abandonment issue here. We need to arrest this woman and drag her back to the prison of motherhood. Brixto bashes them. They reach for their guns, but they don't have hands. Brixto's able to bite this hammer and hop real good. Knows just the right way to sort of shift his neck, such that the angular momentum is enough to split a whole police officer down the middle. And does that. Eventually, Gopher managed to get the gum off with a mixture of Alka-Seltzer and Visine. Little known tip there, you're welcome. Goes on this quest to the Keys Woods. But there's thousands of keys trees. He doesn't know which leaf will unlock his child. And then a robber runs by and says, hey, give me all your snot. Husband says, I had a gun? Robber says, irrelevant, give me all your snot. So he has to sneeze on this robber for a bit. Robber thanks him and leaves. Eventually, husband's pocket starts shining. It's the snow globe. Oh man, he thinks, somehow almost time for dinner with the Gife. Must be nearing the key. Keeps his eyes on the glowing elf eyes. And once they get just as bright as they're getting, he looks up, spots a key that is just the right size and shape to insert into his mutant child. Reaches up for it, right? But it's too unsticky to grab. How am I gonna unlock my baby now? So he has to, look, he's about to head home. He's like, it's time for dinner. Snow globe told me so. Guess I shouldn't have washed all that gum off. But then he thinks, if that moron could be a sage, maybe I can sage myself up too while I'm out here. He remembers this story he heard once about a turtle who made a trampoline out of silly putty in its own belly. Husband's like, sounds good to me. Starts digging until he hits the layer of fur. There's a layer of fur in the earth, and if you lick it long enough, it becomes gelatinous toys. This is a strange technique, an arcane secret, practiced by kitty cats. But he reverse engineers it, uses that and some of the fallen branches to make his own belly trampoline, bounces into the air and bites the key free. He's a sage now. And in that moment he goes, I banged my cousin. But he goes home anyway. He's like, we need to settle this saga and then we can get a divorce. She can keep the killer's record. Unlocks the baby, right? And inside of the baby, there's this bipedal ostrich, which is kind of standard practice for ostriches. But the half chicken, half egg over there is caught in an endless spiral of hatching and unhatching, sees the ostrich and stops on hatching. Just becomes a chicken now. And 24 years later, the ostrich and the chicken hook up at prom, and that's where all chickens come from. You look at that and you're like, wait. So chickens are half chicken and half ostrich? Yes.